Hello, welcome back to my channel. I just finished posting my Italy vlogs, so I'm going to talk about all things Italy, everything I learned, where I went, what I enjoyed, what I didn't, and hopefully it's helpful to someone. It was my very first time going to Europe, so I feel like I learned a lot. I'm definitely not the best well-traveled, well-versed person to talk about all of this, but I will say from my first experience, I think I learned a lot and I just want to share my experience. So starting off with Rome, that was the first city we went to when we went to Italy, and I absolutely loved it. I was supposed to study abroad in Rome and I was so nervous that I wasn't gonna like it. It got canceled because of COVID, but I absolutely loved Rome. So the first night that we got there, we actually got there really late and everyone was still like out and about in the town. And originally we were really worried that we weren't gonna be able to get dinner because it was so late, but everything there is open so late. People were out there partying until like 3 o'clock in the morning every single day. And honestly, like for some people that might be annoying, but for me it made me feel so much safer being around at night. When we went out to dinner, it was probably 11 or 12 at that point and the restaurant was packed and I felt completely safe like walking around. We got gelato after, we ate it by the Trevi Fountain because that's where our hotel was near, and yeah, I just felt really safe because there were so many people out and about. And again, while that might be annoying for some people, I really enjoyed it. So that was kind of our first impression of Rome, and so I was already interested. I think for someone who might be overwhelmed by bigger crowds and things like that, they might not enjoy it. My friend Casey that I went with found Rome to be a little overwhelming in that way. But again, for me, I feel like as a female traveler, I definitely felt a lot safer with those crowds at night. I will also say, because we stayed at the Trevi Fountain, it was that area in particular was always packed and a lot of people go at night there in particular. So I think that probably was also a big reason that it was always so crowded so late there. But I honestly really enjoyed going there at night and I felt like I would also go late if I could do it again. With Rome and obviously all the big attractions there, I would definitely recommend booking tickets to the Colosseum and the Forum in advance. That was something we didn't do that I really wish we did, because we ended up having to get it from this travel agency and it was just really complicated. We couldn't find the place that we needed to get them from, and we ended up walking all the way to the Colosseum from our hotel, which was probably like a 30-40 minute walk, and then we actually had to backtrack and walk back to the Altar of the Fatherland, which was probably like a 15-minute walk in Rome heat in June, and that was honestly brutal and like kind of got us in a bad mood for the beginning of our day because we didn't know that we had to go to that office in the first place. So I would definitely recommend getting those tickets in advance, but also making sure that you know where you need to pick them up from. We ended up having like some historic video included in our package with the tickets, which probably made it a little bit more expensive, but because of timing we weren't even able to watch that. So yeah, I definitely think planning that out better, and then also planning out, at least where we got it from, you could go to the Roman Forum at any time, but you could only go to the Colosseum at specific times. So planning out which one you want to do first and how long you think it's going to take. Honestly, the Forum is massive. We could have probably spent hours there, but at that point we were tired and exhausted and had to go to the Colosseum at a certain time. So it was very crazy and we kind of rushed through it, where I feel like I wish we had spent a bit more time just going through everything, taking time to rest. I don't know if you can eat in there, but if you can, like, it would be a great place to have like lunch and kind of go through it leisurely. And then with the Colosseum, I didn't find it was crazy at all. Our ticket timing worked out perfectly and we were able to like go through the whole thing with no problems, which was great. But it was just kind of getting there and getting the tickets that was a little bit stressful, and I definitely think I would have planned further ahead with that. In Rome, I feel like there are so many attractions that you can go to that are free, and definitely taking advantage of that is the way to go. We went to the Altar of the Fatherland and were able to go inside for free. So the Altar of the Fatherland was really cool. We were able to see the Trevi Fountain, obviously. We went to the Spanish Steps. So there were so many things that we were able to see just like walking around. The Pantheon is also free, that I definitely recommend doing if you're on a budget. The Colosseum and the Roman Forum were the most expensive things that we did while we were in Rome, other than the Vatican Museum, which we also had to pay for tickets for. But other than those two things, it honestly was pretty affordable, and I think that there's a lot of things you can do without having to pay for them. The other big thing I will say is that there are so many tourist traps in Rome. The first 2 days that we went there to eat, we're like, oh, we'll just walk into whatever pasta shop we find. And pasta shop, a restaurant, I don't know what's going on with my brain. We went to whatever restaurant we found first, and honestly I feel like that was such a mistake. The first 2 days we were there, I was like, I don't understand why everyone's so hyped about Italian food, because it was like, it was good, but it wasn't anything special. And I had convinced myself that like Italian food just isn't as good as everyone says. And then I realized that we were just going to places in the most touristy areas possible and just picking a random one. A lot of times, like, the people working at the restaurants are trying to, like, lure you in, being like, hey, like, come to ours. And that's super nice if you don't want to, like, plan accordingly. But if you want the best Italian food, especially in Rome, I would definitely recommend doing research before and kind of planning out where you want to go, because you can fall into that trap where you're going to places that aren't the best. Okay, sorry if the camera angle just changed. I had to rearrange some stuff. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend doing some research on restaurants, because the last night we were in Rome, we went to a restaurant still near the Trevi Fountain, but it was like a little bit tucked away in one of the side streets, and it was the best food that we had in Rome the whole time we were there. So I definitely would recommend doing that. I know a lot of people go to visit the Vatican City when we were in Rome, and we also did that. It was really cool to see the Sistine Chapel, and I really enjoyed it, but I felt like it was so hard to get there that it kind of spoiled the experience for us. We tried to walk, and we ended up going to the wrong entrance, and it ended up taking us like an extra 40 minutes to get to where we needed to go. And it was so hot and miserable that by the time we were there, we were just like so over it and kept having to take breaks when we were walking around the museum. Sorry, Oakland is making so much noise right now. So I feel like there wasn't a lot of communication, at least from wherever we bought the tickets from, which I thought was directly from the Vatican Museum site, but I'll double check that. And it was just really hard to figure out where we needed to go exactly, and we kept trying to ask people, and the guards were not very helpful. So I think it's really important to research that, because again, we just had no idea where we were supposed to go. Also, there is an option if you have tickets to the museum to go directly into the basilica from there, and we didn't realize that you had to actually go directly from inside the museum to the basilica. We thought that because you were already in Vatican City, you could go straight to the basilica, and that was a mistake, because then the line ended up being so long and we didn't even end up going in because of that. So if you do have tickets to the museum, I believe there's a tunnel that goes from the museum to the basilica, and you should not exit the museum if you want to do that, because once you exit, then you'll have to wait online like everyone else. And we couldn't even see like an option out front that was like, oh, we had tickets to the museum, like, can we go that way? So I would definitely say if you're interested in going to the basilica, get tickets to the museum, because not only is the Vatican Museum, like, they were amazing, and you get to see the Sistine Chapel, and it was very cool. I also just think that saving all that time waiting on the line to go to the basilica would be life-changing, because the line, I believe it was probably like about 1 to 2 hours at that point, and we definitely were not waiting on that line. Another really cool thing about Rome is that there's a bunch of trains going everywhere every day. Because it was our first time in Italy, we weren't sure if we wanted to stay in Florence for a night, and we were already going around so many places in Europe that it felt like making Rome our home base was smarter. So instead of staying in Florence, we ended up taking a train from Florence, which only ended up being about an hour and a half, and was not bad at all. So we took a train to Florence and spent the day there, and Florence was very nice. This is my hot take, is that I don't really feel like I loved Florence as much as I loved Rome, and I know people love Florence. It's so many people's favorite city in the world. I don't know if I just didn't get enough of an experience of it, or if maybe it's just like not my kind of city. I really loved the hustle and bustle of Rome, and I feel like in Florence there wasn't as much of that going on. It's more of a chill city, which I can definitely see some people loving. It just wasn't necessarily for me. But we really enjoyed our time there. If you're interested in getting any like leather bags in your time in Italy, I would definitely recommend going to the leather market in Florence. My mom one request when I went to Europe was that she really wanted a bag. I was able to get her a bag from that market. It ended up only being $50 for a pretty good sized bag. So you can also like barter with the people because you're at the market, and I honestly think it's a way to go if you're interested in getting one of those. We also went to the famous bridge that is there that I literally cannot pronounce, but I will write it on the screen. And that was really cool. I recommend like sitting there and just people watching. It's a lot of luxury stores and like jewelry stores, and me and Casey were not really interested in buying any of that, but I love just being able to sit and watch other people go by. We got gelato. We were having a good time. So I don't think you need to be like spending money in the stores if you still want to like go and visit the famous bridge and see everything. We found a spot by the water. We literally sat there for probably an hour just enjoying the views, and it was really nice. One more thing about Rome is that there are a lot of scams there, and I think you really need to be wary of them. You will notice it as soon as you go to Rome. Thank goodness we were staying by the Trevi Fountain because we spot them really early on, but there are a lot of people who are handing out roses, and that's like one of the biggest ones there because they will literally like give it to a girl or whoever and then like look at the person who's with them and be like, oh, so you have to pay for that because I gave it to her. Like, or they'll target couples and be like, oh, like, you know, get roses for your girlfriend. And obviously they're trying to make money, and it could be nice sometimes, but a lot of times they'll like give you the rose and not take it back if you take it. So definitely stay clear of the people who are handing out the roses. A lot of times they're handing out other things as well. I'm trying to remember what else we saw them handing out, but I know roses were the biggest thing, and we were like, you need to stay clear of that. I want to say they were like selling selfie sticks too or something, but I think roses were the most discreet way of being like, oh, you know, you're in Italy, you're getting a rose. Like you could just think that they're being nice, but then they make you pay for it. And a lot of times these people get aggressive with it. So definitely be careful with that. There are also a lot of pickpocketers in Rome, but we just had our belt bags like right in front of our bodies and didn't end up having a problem with it, thank God. So I would recommend also just like keeping your bag in the front of you. I know that people said like don't have a buckle that's in the back. Our buckle was right in the front, right by where the bag was, so it ended up working out perfectly. The last place we went to while we were in Italy was Amalfi Coast. So we took a train from Rome to Naples, and then we ended up taking a train from Naples to, I want to say it was to Sorrento, or maybe one town over from Sorrento because we thought it was closer to our hotel. And we really were banking on the fact that Free Now would be working there, or we would just find a cab at the train station, but that was absolutely not the case. When we got off the train, we had absolutely no way to get to our hotel, and the Amalfi Coast is very much not a walkable area. It's usually like you take buses or you rent like a scooter. So we had no way to get to our hotel, and we were both freaking out. We didn't feel safe, one, like because of the roads, but two, like we also just didn't feel safe as two women walking. It was like the sun was setting, it was getting dark, and we just did not know what to do. So we ended up calling our hotel, and they sent a cab for us, and thank God we had that option. But if you're staying in an Airbnb, I genuinely don't know what you would do. So I would recommend like setting up a driver beforehand, or if you know like a cab company, a lot of people share cab companies' names or their drivers' names online. I would recommend doing that because we were so stressed about the fact that we were stuck and didn't know how to get there. And even if we wanted to walk, after I had seen what the Amalfi Coast is like, I like actually don't know if walking with our bags would have been possible because it's like so hilly and so windy, and there's like no sidewalks on the road. So that was really stressful, and I don't necessarily think the train is a bad option. I know a lot of people take a private driver from the Naples airport to the Amalfi Coast, or like from the Naples train station to the Amalfi Coast, and I honestly feel like if you're like me and you get like stressed and like it would be worth it for you to spend a little money on something that reduces that stress, that could really be the way to go because we were just so overwhelmed. I have another hot take, and that is I just did not really love the Amalfi Coast as much as I thought I was going to. I feel like it was so hyped up to me, and maybe that's why I was a little disappointed. But I also think we had booked our entire trip through a travel agent, and I had talked about this a little bit before, but I definitely wouldn't do this again, or at least I would talk more about what I'm kind of looking for in a trip, because we were in the middle of kind of Sorrento and like the other coast, so like the north and south coast. We were like right in the middle of the island, and we were closest to Sorrento in terms of like big towns, big areas, but we were very much in the middle of nowhere. It was probably a 15-minute bus ride from our hotel to Sorrento, and then like 40 minutes from Sorrento to Positano, and even longer to Amalfi. And I just felt like we were so far from everything, and as two girls who like don't have a lot of money, we're trying to figure things out, it was so hard to get everywhere. Our pool had a hotel, which was really our pool had a hotel our hotel had a pool, which was very nice, and we enjoyed that. But at the same time, like, we're in the Amalfi Coast, we want to go to the beaches, we want to go like swim in the ocean and do like all the fun and exciting things there, and I just felt like that was so hard to do based on where we stayed. And I definitely, if I could go back, I would stay in Positano. Even though it's more expensive, there's so much more going on, and the beaches are really nice there. It kind of gives you like that Amalfi Coast feel that you want when you're going there, and I felt like that's kind of what we were missing out being in Sorrento. Sorrento's a lot quieter, so if you're kind of looking for a more relaxing vacation, Sorrento would be a great place to go. It's also the closest to Capri out of all of the big towns. But for me personally, I feel like as a young traveler, I wanted more action going on, and I felt like even though like the stores and restaurants were cool in Sorrento, it just wasn't really what I was looking for. And again, we enjoyed our time there. I liked it, but I feel like I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to, and I do think that the location was a big part of that. We ended up going to Positano 2 nights, and I feel like that really improved the trip. The transportation in general is a little tricky in the Amalfi Coast. There were buses that were canceled because of flooding on roads. We wanted to go to Amalfi our last night, and we couldn't because of that. The bus ride is honestly a little bit brutal from Sorrento to Positano. I'm sure just around the area in general, because the roads are really windy and you're like on a huge bus. So if you have any motion sickness issues like I do, it honestly was not a great experience. It was hot, it was stuffy, I felt dizzy, couldn't look at my phone the whole time, and it's a long ride. I mean, it ended up being like 40 minutes, and there's traffic a lot of time on the Amalfi Coast, and it just like was not ideal. I would say if you want to rent like a Vespa, scooter, motorcycle, whatever, I would definitely recommend doing that. I feel like it makes it so much easier to get around everywhere because you don't have to go on the buses. But obviously you have to be like comfortable riding those, which not everyone is. While I was there though, I really enjoyed going to like the other towns like Positano. If you're not staying in Positano, I definitely recommend visiting Sorrento. We actually had some amazing food when we were in Sorrento. I just think that for younger travelers, Positano and Amalfi might be a better option in terms of just like things going on and a little more accessible. But overall, I honestly had an amazing time in Italy. I am actually going back in September, so I'm so excited. I'm going to go to Venice, which I haven't yet, and then spend a little bit more time in Florence and also go to Cinque Terre. So if anyone has any recommendations for those places, I would love to hear it. I honestly learned so much from my first time being there and getting to experience everything. So I am just really excited to go and get back and see if what I learned can be useful, and hopefully this is helpful to you too as a first-time traveler. I know there's so much to figure out, and I kind of wish that I had someone, or like maybe watch more videos about kind of things that you need to remember, because there's like little things that can kind of mess up your trip and you don't want them to happen. Because I know that first day we were walking around aimlessly in the Coliseum and all of that, it just really almost ruined things for us. So I hope you don't make those same mistakes as me. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye. It was my very first time. Oh, my dog's throwing up.